Please put your hands together for David Rowan. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Hello, nice to be here. My job is to find Stockholm entrepreneurs and put them on the cover of my magazine, making them look like an angel. So if there is anybody in the room who still hasn't been on the cover of Wired, just see me through the day. I'm gonna take you somewhere ugly. My email inbox. So I get lots of emails from PRs and marketers pitching their business, trying to get coverage, thinking this is the way to success. And I'm just going to whiz through in real time just some examples of some of the things I've picked up in the last few days. Brace yourself. So these are the subject lines of some of the emails. Industry's largest cloud supply chain event unveils keynote agenda. Court order highlights London as New World capital of international commercial litigation. I see you ready to tweet all this. Press release, because we didn't know it was a press release. Press release, Sustainable Hazelnuts Farming Initiative in Turkey, which we gave to our sustainable hazelnut farming correspondent. This is a subject line you'll like. Webinar. Improve customer satisfaction by up to 50%. So if that word webinar doesn't sedate you, the precision of customer satisfaction being improved by up to 50%. They've thought about that. So I ignored that one because I only like customer satisfaction strategies that go up to about 51% improvement. Cloud World Forum explores the hybrid cloud concept. That gets you a bit aroused, doesn't it? I can see. This is just the full subject line. The Alzheimer's Show 2014. Easy to forget. Life-changing treatment for alopecia sufferers. We get this every day. People are paying PR agencies quite a lot of money, monthly retainers, to send this sort of stuff to us. Some of it has embargoes. New research from UK universities embargoed until 12 noon UK time on this date. Like the idea of an embargo is still going to work when you're trying to get coverage. You put a fake barrier in people's way. So let's not try and excite you. Let's try and establish a hierarchy of who's in control here. Scottish wireless networking specialist doubles in size in under a year. Another mistake is telling us what's really exciting for you, but forgetting what actually matters to the customer, or even the people you're trying to get to channel your story. And then, of course, there's the fake survey. Of course, we're all really stupid, desperate journalists, and we will buy any made-up survey. So here's just a couple of examples. Most British cheat via mobile. So this is from a site for married people to meet each other and have extramarital romances. An exclusive survey reveals that most cheaters, 79%, wait for this, contact their lovers via mobile phone. They even tell you which network is the most popular. It's Vodafone. A quarter of Brits have admitted they would rather break up with their partner than drop their phone down the toilet. I'm not even going to dignify the company behind this, but they do encourage you to buy a protection plan for your mobile phone. There is also science backed by data. So another survey that came to Wired, a survey on the perfect girlfriend. So they did a little online survey of not very many people, and they've proved undisputably, that the perfect girlfriend is 5'5" tall, drinks white wine, has no tattoos, supports Manchester United, and is probably a nurse. We stopped everything at Wired. You have to grab people's emotion. You have to understand that we as humans love spreading stories. Stories are what define the challenges we face in life. We want to understand the pressures that we face, the conflicts, the fears. We love stories, so give us the opportunity to incorporate your business in our person-to-person storytelling. Tell our story. Tell the customer's story. Don't tell your story. And don't use fake words, cliches, when it's really about something that excites you. There was a reason you set up your business. There was a passion, a mission. You are not the enterprise software end-to-end solution. You are not the Uber of washing detergent, toilet paper, whatever. You've got to have a message to communicate to people that will resonate with our excitement, our anger, our fears. You've got to express it in a tight way like some of the greatest storytellers have done. As Gregor Samsa awoke from uneasy dreams, he found he had been transformed into a gigantic cockroach. That's going to make you read on and try and empathize with the subject. So, pretty much don't send press releases. Almost all press releases I see are practically worthless. There's a saying that marketing is the tax you pay for having a lame product. I think forcing journalists to read your press releases is the tax you impose on us for turning our email on. Storytelling is a really, really important skill. If you think about Kickstarter, it's just an endless stream of wonderful stories. People trying to connect with a community, trying to explain why they're excited on their mission to build this product to solve this specific problem. And they are heartfelt, the successful ones. They show you the honest truth about their world. There's an integrity, an authenticity to the projects that really work. If you think about it, something like Bitcoin, all that is a story. It's giving us a narrative tool to start to understand how we might challenge the existing structure of finance. And if enough of us buy into that story and share it, maybe Bitcoin has a value. So I'm going to talk not just about the bad news. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the people who have mastered the art of storytelling for a growing business. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the science of storytelling, because there is quite a lot of tested science about how to engage with lots of human beings, how to tell a narrative in a way that makes us listen and makes our eyes get bigger and our hearts race. Daniel Ek has mastered storytelling. It's a brilliant story. You know, he knocks on the doors of music companies for years initially, before they actually would listen. And he said, so I want you to stop this business of selling profitable CDs. I'd like you to stop that. I'd like you to give away your music, but trust me, it's going to be the way you save your industry. And then to consumers, he told the compelling story. I will give you access to all the music you could want, wherever, whenever. Beautifully simple story. The simple ones are often the best. But we can all impose our own thoughts, our own dreams on that very simple message. There's a story going through the US Supreme Court at the moment. It's a fantastic New York startup called Aereo. Chet Kanoja, the founder, wants to challenge the oligopoly of the cable companies in the US. And so he's devised a little tiny 1 centimeter TV aerial. And he'll have thousands of these together in his server room. And each one will belong to a different consumer. Because he's found a loophole in the law. You can't stream to customers established free-to-air TV, but you can do whatever you want with your own personally received signal through your own aerial. So you actually technically have access to your aerial in his server room. So his story is not about technology, although it's a very clever way of reframing what your personal aerial is. It's a story about us versus them. Us, the consumers who don't want to pay $100 a month for a very crappy TV cable service. We want the programs we like on any device we want. And he's offering that magic happy ending, subject to the Supreme Court. I'm going to show you a little bit of video from some people who really have got the storytelling right. So this is a hardware company using commodified parts. Anybody can get these parts in Shenzhen, but it's about to go to IPO because what GoPro does is tell a story. People who use their HD cameras are adventurers. They're living the life. They're skiing through avalanches. When you tell a story like that, you build a community. People start doing your marketing for you. Just go onto YouTube, you can see so many millions of shares of these kinds of videos. Because it's compelling. We love the idea of being adventurers or watching people push the limits. It just so happens that it involves a GoPro camera. Nick Woodman, the founder, is a brilliant storyteller. Tony Fadell created the iPod, led 18 generations of iPod at Apple, then created the iPhone, first 3 generations of iPhone. Then he decided to rethink the story of how we engage in the home with our devices, the thermostat, the smoke alarm. Google bought Nest in January for $3.2 billion. And the great thing about Tony Fadell's approach is he is still that kid who, aged 4, went into the yard with his grandfather, who was a school superintendent, who was a maker, who used to work with kids, helping them construct go-karts. And Tony would learn firsthand the excitement of taking stuff apart and putting things together. And so he's built a business. But it's really about getting his hands dirty. So I interviewed him for our next magazine, and I said, why did you sell to Google? He said, it wasn't about the money. It was about the opportunity to build a bigger company that's doing engineering and design without all the distractions of being a founder, having to deal with tax codes in Germany, having to deal with personnel issues. That's what I want to do. There's authenticity there.
Do you feel okay?
What if instead of fearing the worst
Scanadu,
when you notice something
a company out of California,
you could identify
making
the
a health
yourself.
tracking device that you put on your forehead. It's going to be
Getting
out
the
this
right
year for
diagnosis would save you
$150.
worry
It says it's rosy.
Their story
and an unnecessary
is this is
doctor's
just the
visit.
start.
Rest at home.
You
It's
will
okay.
be able to use their devices in the future
Instead of hearing about a viral outbreak on the news, imagine you
to
got an
diagnose
alert
anything.
that was tailored to your family's needs. It would also give you advice about what to do next. What if you had a way to identify what was wrong right away?
It says it's 103.8.
A way to get all of the information you need to understand the situation. And in serious cases, you would know when and where to seek help.
Yeah, it recommends
We're building a way for people to check their bodies as often as they check their email. It's all possible, and it's only the beginning.
So this is a film made by Ideo for Scanadu. Note the power of video in telling a story. That engages you. The founder, Walter de Brewer, kind of obsessed scientist, but he's trying to build the bigger vision, and that's something he can powerfully communicate.
This is the Copenhagen Wheel. It turns your ordinary bicycle into a smart electric hybrid by simply replacing your back wheel. Connect it to your smartphone, download the app, and you're ready to go. Bicycles are a great way to move around, yet sometimes distances are too long, hills can get in the way, and hard journeys to work may leave you covered in sweat.
So this
the
is
Copenhagen Wheel is
a company
here to
I went
change
to
all
see
of that.
2 days ago in Cambridge,
The technology
in
was developed over
Massachusetts.
several years at MIT, together with the
called
city of
Super
Copenhagen,
Pedestrian.
one of the world's most
It's a founder
innovative
called
places
Asaf
for
Biederman,
cycling.
who was at the
Its
MIT
original
Sensible
inventors
Cities Lab,
licensed the technology
and
founded
they're telling a story.
The startup where
We
are
will
now
give
working
you
around the
or
clock
sell
to bring
you
the wheel to
a
you.
special wheel that's packed with
Like the best riding
sensors,
companion,
but also
the
connects
Copenhagen
your
wheel
kinetic
learns how you
energy
pedal
and turns it into
integrates
help when you want to go
seamlessly with your
uphill.
motion.
Our story is we want to get more people cycling, longer journeys, get people out of cars, and he's building a company culture. He's got talent coming to him. He's getting investment from pretty influential people because there's a vision there that they're executing on.
What if we use trees to light our streets instead of electric street lamps? Imagination and innovation are the forces that have advanced our civilization throughout history. Our generation's frontier is synthetic biology. Our guide, nature itself. And as usual, the potential is limited only by our greatest imagination. So why do we need this when we can use this?
So this is the Glowing
Inspired
Plant
by
project.
fireflies and aquatic bioluminescence.
This is a crowdfunding project with a beautiful story. If you can take bioluminescent DNA
real glowing plants
and in the biohacking world we're in now, implant it into plants, why shouldn't you have trees replace street lamps?
The glowing genes from
That's something we'll spread.
bacteria
That's
or
something we'll talk about. So Boston Dynamics, great stories, great visual way of presenting it. Another company that Google purchased. So you just got to think of how you convey these stories. What will you do that will improve my life? And what actually are you doing? Don't tell me your strategy before you've told me what you're making, how it fits into my life. And find a narrative arc to tell us how you've got to where you are and where you're going. The great stories have tensions. They have heroes and anti-heroes. They have a challenge that's been overcome. So there's a bit of science behind storytelling, and it's worth having a look through a couple of books if you're interested in this. There's one book by Christopher Booker called The 7 Basic Plots, and he reduces most narratives, most movies, most novels into effectively 7 storylines. And the basic meta plot, just going through Christopher Booker's description, you start with anticipation. You go to the dream stage where you have some initial success, things are looking good. Then there's a frustration stage. Then there's a nightmare, things get really, really dramatic and dark. And then the hero or the heroine resolves it, and there's a happy ending. And then there's variations on this. There's the rag to riches version with Cinderella or Jane Eyre. There's the rebirth, Sleeping Beauty, Peer Gynt. It's very simple how to tell a story. There's no mystery about it. We grew up with stories. That's how children communicate. Joseph Campbell reduced the hero's journey through a lot of historic stories into a 12-step journey. He called it the monomyth. So you start off with, the ordinary world, you get the call to adventure, you meet a mentor, things test you in life, there's an ordeal, eventually you return home with a magic elixir. So these sound like abstract ideas, but they relate to what BuzzFeed are doing now, to what Upworthy are doing now, to an understanding that we identify, we express ourselves, we have social currency from sharing stories. And it helps if they're positive stories. We want to share something that is constructive and uplifting, that has an emotional resonance. If you look at a lot of the Upworthy headlines, there is a hero battling against the bad guy. There's an emotional arc of the story. There's an inspiring message often. There's something useful that the story is telling us about the world. And the best stories don't have jargon. They're authentic. They have a mission, a sense of passion, a purpose. And there is data in there, but it's built around a storytelling arc, not just about a theory. It touches us in some way. So use imagery. Use simplicity of language. Be brief. And keep testing your story. Steve Jobs was constantly telling the same story about his new product to everybody he met and iterating before he'd finally go on stage. Think about companies like Icebreaker, New Zealand merino wool company, who've decided their story is we're going to connect the consumer with the actual source of the wool. So every item they sell has a little code which tells you which farm your sheep came from. Because there is money in stories. So there was this book called Significant Objects, published a couple of years ago, Joshua Glenn and Rob Walker, and they bought some old products, useless old products, on eBay very cheaply, and they hired a copywriter to build a story around them, and then they relisted them on eBay with those stories, and they found they were getting 3, 5, 10 times the prices, because we can engage when there is an effective story told. This is Oscar, a startup in New York, selling health insurance. But they've actually decided on a better story. People hate their health insurer. But what if Oscar could be your partner for staying healthy? So you get free 24-hour access to a medical hotline. They will share your medical data back with you. It's a better story. So think about what the core of your mission is. Don't think about, let's just find an easy way to get press. Just go out there and find a way, through trial and error, to communicate it. Because what you're doing is quite important. You just got to find ways to get other human beings emotionally engaged in your story. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't run away. David, don't run away. Come back. Thank you. Always fascinating to see on the other side of the journalism wall, from the entrepreneur's side at least. Do we have any questions, Andre and Ebba, from the audience?
Oh yeah, we have a question here. So what is the story of Wired?
Maybe
Could
in
you pitch us?
3 or 5 lines, words.
1990 to 1992, crazy anarchist techno-utopian called Louis Rossetto, living in Amsterdam, I think initially, decides that this internet thing is going to be quite important and is going to disrupt all sorts of industries, persuades Nicholas Negroponte at TED in 1992 to write a check for $50,000. Negroponte gets a nice column out of it as well. And it goes for 22 years so far, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, it was decided that Europe was ready for the disruption, and there were enough stories of innovation. And Condé Nast, which owns Wired now, launched a UK edition, which I run, and an Italian edition, and there's now a Japanese edition and a German edition. And I think the timing was really right, because just sitting in London, looking at the rise of confidence in the entrepreneurial world, not just with software, but now with hardware, and the internationalization, the fact that a London startup like Kano, that makes like an ecosystem around the Raspberry Pi, has 17 people in East London from 10 different countries. Europe's map of buzzing entrepreneurial centers, Stockholm, Berlin, London, Tel Aviv, Moscow. There's so much happening, and there's like interconnectivity between them. So we've actually got less trouble than we had finding those stories.
Sounds like a good place to be.
It's fun.
I've got one question, and you know what it is. And it's, what is your one piece of advice that you would give to the audience today that they can go and start doing tomorrow?
Go and commit unprovoked acts of generosity. Go and offer favors to people without them asking for it. Go and connect people together if you see a value there. Go and share an idea that you might have had that can help solve somebody's problem. Because there's a wonderful pay-it-forward mentality, particularly in the Valley, that's coming over to Europe, which is, I don't need an instant return on doing something useful. Eventually, if more of us do useful things, it will come back and benefit me.
Looking forward to that. Sounds good. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I have a gift for you as you leave the stage.